love to listen in the morning. Jimmy Lakey on the radio. I got my coffee and cream. Jimmy's on the air. Wake up and start your day. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliant to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
Hey, that would be me, right? Jimmy Lakey. That sounds like my name. You know, one day I remember they called me in radio and said, "Hey, we got a show named the Jimmy Lakey Show," and I saw it in the want ads, and I said, "Huh, I should apply for that. That sounds really good because that is my name." Jimmy Lakey, nice to have you here, everybody, all across America. Alarms and notifications are going off that Lakey is live. Lakey is unleashed, and he's behind the microphone, and you're in front of the speakers, which is the way the good Lord intended this glorious day to go. So welcome to the program. Glad to have you here. All right, as you join in, a lot of listeners will join us live throughout the morning as notifications go out. You know how it is, that you get notifications and it shows up in your feed, and then it shows up here, and then you're like, oh, I guess I should watch this or listen to it. And then the lots of you that watch the show, listen to the show later on in the day on the podcast platforms. Welcome to you joining us a little bit later, and some of you just watch the reruns on all the platforms are out there. I've got to do a little contemplation. We've there's a housekeeping note I'll get to and get your thoughts on this. I know some of you watch it on the YouTube, but evidently somebody messaged me yesterday, and that Charlie Kirk said in order to take back the culture, he was gravitating away from YouTube so that he wasn't supporting their drivel, and he was encouraging people to move away. I haven't seen that, but YouTube is not one of our higher performers, but we like to have all of it on YouTube. Let us know on YouTube how you watch it, when you watch it, and love to hear from all of our YouTube fans out there. Glad to hear from you. But somebody sent me that message. You got to come off the YouTubes. And I said, why do I have to come off the YouTubes? And they said, because Charlie would want you to. And I said, oh, goodness, now we're getting into what would Charlie do? So I think it's a great question, actually, because more than likely he would pray about it. More than likely he would share the message of Jesus about it. I think that's a fantastic thing. Anyway, welcome to the program, everybody. Let us know where you're watching the program, listening to the program. If you're on the live feed this morning, glad to have you join us. 17th day of September, year of our Lord, 2025. If you're new to the program, my name is Jimmy Lakey. I have been unleashed from over 2 decades of confines in the bonds of corporate radio. I'm unleashed to do my own thing here, and producer Chad and I lovingly and with gentle touch present this show to you every morning now, of our weekday mornings when we feel like showing up. Stacy checks in from the motherland, the homeland, the great state of Texas. Jim checking in from Fort Collins, Colorado. I think the Arkansas contingency have shown up there. They're out there, and good to see Arkansas out there. Florida, we're still missing our Florida friends. Florida, love to hear from you. Maryland, it's been a while since we had Maryland check in. And anybody out there in Alaska or California, I know we got Washington, I know we got Oregon in our regular viewing audience. So if you're in any state that, maybe you don't want to participate all the time, but give us a shout out if you're in New York. We'd love to have you. I know that a lot of the Red Wave Equalizer, the Red Wave America and the Media Equalizer page have a lot of audience in the Northeast, and so I'd love to hear from you. Boston area as well. I know Brian Maloney and his crew check in sometimes. So wherever you're watching, I'd love to have you check in. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us see those demographics, because that would be make me very happy. Dennis is checking in on the YouTube. YouTube is under fire by some of you. So you say, Lakey, you got to come off the YouTube. That's what Charlie would. I didn't know Charlie was anti-YouTube. I didn't know that. I've got to look that up. I'll do research. I want to make sure we have facts here on this program. All right, yesterday, you see the hearing, the charges filed against this alleged murderer of Charlie Kirk. The guy sat there, looked like he had they called that a suicide schmuck, and it looked like he had no shirt on under it, just a suicide schmuck. I thought it was a bulletproof or protective vest, but he never left the jail cell. That is a suicide schmuck. I have not done the work to see how that works, but are his hands bound like it's a straight jacket? I don't know what it's called, a suicide schmuck, but I don't know if there's evidently, I guess he had told his parents that rather than hand himself in, he's going to kill himself. They talked about killing himself But he was wearing a suicide schmuck. When I saw it, I thought it was a bulletproof vest. And then I said, usually they put that on people or protective gear when they're walking them out prone to the public and to avoid a Jack Ruby kind of moment. But this one had a suicide schmuck. So I don't know. I've got to look it up. Maybe some of you can inform us in the chat rooms what the suicide schmuck does. But it looks like maybe it keeps your arms. So maybe we used to call that a straitjacket. I'm not exactly sure. But he stated his name. That's all he said, was going to be appointed an attorney. And they laid out pretty detailed information on that, on the case, on the text messages. And then Kash Patel said in front of Congress yesterday in an accountability hearing or oversight hearing, he said, yes, we're looking at everybody that was participating on the gaming platforms with him in the Discord chat. And evidently the boyfriend who wanted to be a girlfriend, a biological man, going to have a chop-it-off-of-me surgery, I guess, or transition to the female, according to news, is cooperating with police. Possibly, I heard it said that it looks like they might have known if they didn't know in advance. They didn't immediately turn the guy in, but they said probably better as you can have all the video or surveillance evidence and all that stuff, but eyewitnesses are always better. So it looks like the boyfriend that wanted to be a girlfriend possibly is cooperating very heavily, possibly to avoid some kind of trouble on their own. So they were talking to 20 people that were on some kind of a chat and in some kind of a Discord chat. And I believe Kash Patel, when asked to clarify by Josh Hawley of Arkansas yesterday, he said, no, it's more than 20. So hold on, my friends. They're scraping the net out there, and they're going to bring in some other people and find out exactly what has happened and who was involved, who knew, who didn't turn him in, all of these fantastic things. Now, there was a movement over the weekend, and you probably saw it, that they were trying to say this guy, they were even putting Photoshops out of him in a Trump shirt. They were a lot of fake news trying to say maybe he wasn't right-wing enough for his very conservative parents. So there was a lot of statements that were put out there over the weekend. Well, now it's headlined that even though the left trying to say he's not one of ours, first the left was happy he's not trans, and then they're happy, oh, the boyfriend want to be, he's they can't win. But they, rather than just condemn evil, they just try to circle around and say it's not our fault. Just condemn evil. Condemning evil is not a hard thing. It's like Jessica Tarlov. Maybe you saw the video. I don't have the copy of it. But Jessica Tarlov got knocked to the ground intellectually by Greg Gutfeld yesterday afternoon, or the day before, Monday afternoon, because all she kept bringing up was obscure persons. This was a crazy liberal that died. Well, no one knew about that. No, that person died because of a personal interaction. We're talking about a mass assassination, but they're intellectually bankrupt people, and therefore, when they can't win the argument, they just start calling you names. They say, he's bigoted. I can't believe the bigotry that comes out of your mouth. What have I said on this program that is bigoted? That there's nothing I've said bigoted. You may interpret it as bigoted, but by general and mainstream definitions, we have had no bigotry on this show, nor would we allow bigotry on this program. So it's fascinating just to watch the American left. And it's yet also sad because these are people that are human beings. They're God's children, and they have gotten so far gone in their spiral downhill or in a media cult of personality or the indoctrination game that you just have to say, what happened to us? You ever wonder back in WW2, and I was a history, my undergrad work was in history, and I love the WW2 era of history. I used to buy my grandpa books before he passed away. He was a WW2 vet. Then I used to buy him books and Time Life books on WW2. There was always a gift for him, very close with him. He was a W2 veteran. Always loved the WW2, and it always baffled me when you looked at people that would turn in their neighbor, knowing that they were going to go off to Auschwitz or off to some gas chamber, going to be executed. What kind of humanity is it that would turn in your neighbor? And I think you start seeing some of that in places past World War II Nazi Germany. You had in Rwanda, where I spend a lot of time every year at, you had a lot of folks turn on their brothers and sisters. And where did that start? If you go back, anybody who's been to Rwanda, first time, I'll always take you to the Genocide Memorial, the main one. There's several of them. And it's a museum of sort done very much top-notch for Rwanda. And you walk in there and you realize that the underbelly of that genocide, the underbelly of killing your neighbor, and I'm sure you can go back and study the same thing for Nazis in WW2. How did you end up turning on your neighbor, turning them over to certain execution? It became about propaganda. And anybody who's been through several of you that watch this show on a somewhat regular basis have been to Rwanda with me and on one of our trips. And you've seen it that began with people in the media and politicians using the phrase cockroaches. They're cockroaches, which is the lowest form of insult you can have in that culture. They are cockroaches. And they called over like a decade of planting in people's head that if you get rid of these people, if we exterminate these people, if we arrest these people, whatever we do, it will be better because we'd be rid of cockroaches. And that was the thing. And it's the same modus operandi that you see culture after culture that this kid sadly got swept up in. His mother said, even though the media all weekend was trying to say maybe he wasn't conservative enough, maybe his parents, the Utah culture turned on him. Let's Photoshop it in a Trump shirt. No, his mom said, no, the last year or so, once he got this transgender boyfriend that wants to be a girl, he's turned pretty much far left and doesn't like his dad's politics. Even in some of the text messages they released, he says, Dad's gone really MAGA recently. And so this indoctrination happens. And it ends up happening. And again, just become a student of history. That's why I love studying history as the undergrad work. I was heading off to law school, and yet here I am. But the media propaganda just really fuels this kind of stuff. It happened in the beautiful country of Rwanda. It happened in Nazi Germany. It happened in the early 90s in Rwanda, again, that led to 1 million people dying in 90 days. It happened in Butler, Utah, that a media frenzy and or an indoctrination frenzy online turned some people or some cabal of people into wanting to kill Donald John Trump. You had the guy hiding in the bushes at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. He had been spun up into some kind of a propaganda frenzy perpetrated by people like Jasmine Crockett, perpetrated by people like CNN and all the media outlets, and suddenly something snaps in their head. Eventually, it snaps on a whole bunch of people's heads. Right now, if we get it under control, we've only seen it snap in some of these young minds full of mush, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them, these little college kids. But eventually, those who are stronger and those say, well, we really don't mean it, we're just proving a point, eventually their heads will snap. The Bible says, and I know some of you are going to shirk at this, but the Bible says, you ready? The Bible says the power of life and death is basically in the tongue. So you choose life. So your tongue is a very powerful thing. And so that's why if you walk around saying, I am sick all the time, I'm unhealthy, it's not good. You put positive affirmation out there. I'm good. It's the power of life and death is in the tongue. And so if you're putting death out in the tongue and in the atmosphere all the time, eventually somebody's going to pick up on that message of death, and they may pick it up on it before you do, but they're going to pick up on it. So anyway, it's fascinating to watch. The hearing was fascinating to watch, and it does turn out, no matter, I know producer Chad has had some people that said, well, this guy wasn't a libtard, as you would call him. This guy wasn't a liberal. Well, what was he? He was a politically motivated thing that, in his own words, according to the FBI and the state of Utah, that this guy said, I've had all this hatred that this guy has. If you watch Charlie Kirk, there was no hatred in his heart. Charlie Kirk wanted people first and foremost to know Jesus. He wanted you to if you watched his interaction, a lot of it was just basically justify where you at. If you watch, there's not a lot of, I don't know where they come up with hate speech, but hate speech for the American left, bigotry for the American left has become anytime they disagree with you, they can't intellectually defend themselves or tell you why you're wrong. So they immediately cast the aspersion of bigotry and hatred. It's been that way for a long time, but now we reach the culminating peak of this moment in history and this moment in time, in which it becomes very sad. Even when I ran for elected office back, it's been over a decade since I ran, I was called a bigot. I was called all sorts of things. And I'm there with my son, who's not white, and they're like, he's a bigot. He doesn't like people of color. And I'm like, do you know what I do when I'm not here making a speech? I'm traveling to Africa. So it's really fascinating times, and eventually 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years of hearing that cry of racist bigot. Now they've amped it up to Nazi and fascist. Eventually the weak minds snap first and start committing acts of genocide and murder. And that's what you've seen happen here. All right, let me get some other stories of the day. We're waiting a guest to hop on the program, just confirmed about a half hour ago. And so hopefully Don Wilkie will be joining us soon. Tucker Carlson has a piece out, and it alludes to exactly what I was just saying, that the deadly sin that Charlie Kirk did. If you really kind of look back at the life, and I can find the Tucker Carlson piece. I thought I had it, but I don't have it here. If you look, the deadly sin that Charlie Kirk committed was his life and relationship and his belief in the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's a lot of people that have said things about transgender. There's a lot of people that have said things about different political and or social cultural phenomena. There's a lot of people that have done all that stuff. But he was when you start bringing the Bible, when you start bringing God into it, when you start bringing Christianity into it, anytime those of us who understand it, you understand that you're not just using words of man's intellect or man's wisdom. You are now using the authority and the power, and you're backed up by the scriptures. And when the scriptures are on your side, hell doesn't like you very much at all, and that angers the forces of hell. And and that's what happened. Is deadly sin, and Tucker Carlson says it much more eloquently. Tucker Carlson says much more eloquently that his deadly sin wasn't that he is in the world of politics, but that he was backing up he was using his Christian faith to change the world of politics. Charlie was not using his politics to change religion. He was looking at the principles that are in God's word. You look at those principles, you look at what's there, and you say, okay, this is not political. This is biblical. This is scriptural. And I believe in the sanctity of life. I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I believe in the purity of marriage. I believe in all this stuff. The Bible backs it up. And so his faith and his politics aligned, but his faith always came first. And that's what pissed people off. If you look through the great people of time, it's not always the most political that gets killed. It's usually the nice guy that gets killed, the one who stands for what's right. You know, what got Abraham Lincoln killed? Was it he wanted to free the slaves? A very good and noble thing. What got Martin Luther King Jr. killed? I mean, you can go into all sorts of conspiracy ultimately, but ultimately what pissed people off that wanted to kill him and made politicians in America from the South, especially George Wallace, etc., hate him, was that he said, I want people to be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And that upset the entire apple cart. Jesus came, and you'd look at the message of Jesus and how counteractive it was that works and sacrifice and knives and blood, all that had to be done, and there were laws that you had to obey. And Jesus said, you don't have to, all this legalism, you don't find God through legalism, you find it through relation. And that got Jesus killed. I mean, you can go through time and find out all sorts of people that have been killed, not because of their political view, but because they bring, they have a moral and righteous view that's based on the word of God, that's based on scripture. And that's what got Charlie in trouble. And that's what Tucker Carlson says his deadly sin that got him killed on the American left was not for disagreeing with him politically, but his deadly sin was when you start speaking and espousing from a position of relationship with God the Father and Christianity, suddenly the Holy Spirit brings conviction to people's hearts, and they feel worse than what they normally would in condemnation and conviction, hopefully conviction, and they just... they'll end up killing you. So it's a troubling time in America, but we have to recognize the root cause and the source. So Stacy says, I think people calling you names, Jimmy, are not happy with themselves. You know, if you want to call me racist, bigot, fatty, whatever, just back it up. Tell me what we said that was racist. Tell us what we said was bigoted. Tell us what we said is, but they can't. They never do. And you can't find it, but it's because they cannot defend their own position. Rather, I mean, what does Charlie Kirk do? Charlie Kirk went to the American campus and he said, hey, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line. You'll have a microphone. And you have a microphone. And if you've watched over and over again these debates that are now circulating, I think some people are waking up saying, wait, why did I believe he was a hater? Why did I believe he was an evil man? There's so many people that just believe what they've heard. And again, they're the ones who have been propagandized. The same way, go back to Rwanda in the early 90s. People just believed, oh, my cousin must be a cockroach. Why? Because I've been told they're cockroaches. And families turned on each other. And the Hutus genocides of the Tutsis became a very real thing. But did not happen overnight. It did not trigger overnight. There was 5, 10, 15, even 20 years of just constant barrage of false information about your brothers and sisters. And also then the Hutus had to be fed like you're inferior. Look, these Tutsis got all the government jobs. They're this, they're that, over and over. Well, they're still my cousin. Doesn't matter. Over and over. And after a decade and a half, you raise up a new generation that believes it from day one, and they'll commit acts of genocide. So this is where you're at in this point of history, that we as America have to wake up, and some people have to have the scales lifted from their eyes, and they have to realize that we cannot believe the propaganda. What ABC, NBC, CBS, all these people are, all the people that are they're preaching this continue to be culpable in the activities and the violence that breaks out there. All right, we'll get to more of this topic of conversation as the morning goes along. What else we want to get to this morning? I got a question of the day. Anybody got a teenager? Maybe your kids are teenagers. My son just stopped being a teenager. He's 20 now. But anybody got teenagers out there, or youngsters, or maybe your grandkids are youngsters? Do they ever use vocabulary that you have no clue what it means? For all through high school, there's been this phrase, and I was telling producer Chad in our pre-show meeting, I'm still not sure what it means, but they use the phrase low key. Like, for me, keep it on the down low, or keep it DL, or keep it low key. No, for them, it's, man, that I'm low key hungry. I'm low key this. I don't know the use of it, because when I look it up in the slang dictionary, it means I'm not that excited. Low key, but because that's what I think it means, but they use it in a different way. An adjective, I don't understand it, but there's some words that I just don't get. I don't understand in the world of slang. Here's another one. There's a new one, the new favorite phrase that, according to Google and to TikTok, everybody's looking up this word clocked in. A TikTok mom expressed herself differently. They may say, your nails look nice, you clocked it. Or they may say, I heard some juicy gossip, but clocked it. So clock it has this weird, it's a new teenage slang word that they're probably a new phrase, clocked it, or low key, and I don't understand them all. And so it brings me to this. You can do one of two things in our question of the day. First of all, let us know the slang word that your teenager uses in conversation that you don't understand, or as the screen says, why don't you let us know the slang words that you use or you used to use that your kid said, don't say that ever again. Yeah, because, what cool, awesome. That may be some kid of the 80s. I don't know if the kids today use that. Their spoken word, they use emojis a lot. I understand that. But the low key and clocked it, these slang words that the youngsters out there, not the older guy, the youngsters use them. They use them, and some of them I don't understand. And low key is the one I really am lost by sometimes. But did anybody remember the words that you used to use that your kids said don't use that? Or the words that you used as a kid that your parents looked at you and said, are you speaking French or Hebrew? What words are you speaking? I just curious about that. Words that you used to use that are either outdated and your kids and grandkids tell you they're outdated, or do you have words that your parents used to look at you and go, what? What does that mean? What does that mean? I'm sure all of us do. But those slang words that you used to use that are now outdated. For instance, I'll give you an example. I don't think in a serious fashion, serious conversation, you can use the word groovy. I'm guessing someone that is older than me maybe you used to use that with patent leather shoes and John Travolta Saturday Night Live suit. But I'm guessing groovy is, you may hear that's really groovy, man, but it's usually kind of a caricature, a parody saying that. Ray says from the YouTube channel, he says the word rad or totally awesome. Anybody remember this? This was like 80s surf talk, totally tubular. That was from the California or Hawaiian surf crowd, tubular. Totally tubular, man. Anyway, and all that stuff. We used to talk that way. Now, if you say it, you're an idiot. Don't ever do that again. And I think the kids will look back when they're using phrases like clocked it, you low key. There's other slangs I don't understand. I should have made a list of them. But let us know the words that you used to use, or maybe you still do, that are probably outdated. RJ says bummer. Is bummer outdated? You can't say bummer. That's a bummer. Now I would probably say that sucks, is what I'd say. Now, growing up, it sucks would get you in trouble. Anybody else raised in the day that you said sucks, you might as well have put an F in front of that. I grew up that way. If you said that sucks, you probably had just, your mouth had just fornicated. It had done very bad things if you said the word suck. And now suck, I think, is much more acceptable. It's probably not the Queen's English, but we don't use a lot of that. But dude, there's one by Ray. Ray did it. It's on the YouTube channel. Dude, hey, dude, I agree. I mean, there's so many words that you kind of think about and you're like, yeah, I'm probably really showing my age by saying this. Name those words that you're probably showing your age if you're saying this. And if there's anybody out there that can tell us if you still use the word groovy and mean it, I'd love to hear from you. Remember the 80s, and I sometimes do this, but I do it playfully. I'm jiggy with it. Anybody remember Jiggy? Was that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? I'm jiggy with it. It's kind of early rap stuff. Get jiggy with it. Yeah. Anybody else get jiggy? I don't know. All right, there's your question of the day. Everybody on all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, etc. Media, Red Wave America, the Media Equalizer, Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. All the platforms out there, let us know those words that you used that kids are outdated, or maybe the kids that maybe the kids out there would tell you don't ever use again. Or maybe you don't understand when they say that. Let me read this one. Rich had 7 kids. I quit trying to understand. If they want something from me, they have to ask in a way for me to understand it, or they don't get what they want. Suck was on the level of the F word when I was young. Rich, me too. Again, if I would have said suck, I might as well have used the F word, because you just didn't say suck. You didn't say that because it was not good. Bad. But now I can say suck in polite company. Well, some polite company. All right, good to have all of you here. I want to bring in our first guest of the morning. There's your question of the day. Talk amongst yourselves. We'll get some of these answers up on the screen. I've got a couple of great videos. Matter of fact, I think I have one of the most impactful videos that you can imagine that I'm going to play before the end of the show. And it's by a post by a guy named Mr. Catholic. And in a very serious note, I want to come to my guest here, Dr. Gilda Carl. But I talk about often the sanctity of life and humanity, the belief that life is special. And when you demonize and when you demoralize and you dehumanize and call people, as they did in the Rwandan genocide, cockroaches, or as they're doing now, fascists, Nazis, a threat to democracy, etc., you're dehumanizing them, and they're devaluing the value of your life. And I said this, that the left and the spiritual forces that are behind a lot of the evil we see, if they can't get you in the womb, they're going to try to get you in the school. They're going to try to get you somewhere, because the Bible, if you're a Bible believer, I am, this says clearly the thief has come to steal, kill, and to destroy. And that is his intent. So when you see stealing, killing, and destruction going on around us, that's not the intent of our Heavenly Father. That's the intent of the enemy. The enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy. So I want to play a very powerful video that's coming up right before the end of the show. It's by a guy named Mr. Catholic, and I think it puts in perspective and kind of overshadows. You're going to like it. I think you will. And it will understand. It will, I think, demonstrate the preciousness of life and what we're living through right now, my friends. This is not just a political battle. We're in a spiritual battle in America, and the enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy, and a lot of that has become now literal, and we have to do what we can to stand against that. Part of that's prayerful. So anyway, stand by. I'm going to play that for you in just a bit. And I've also got Pastor Greg Laurie out of California. Has some great information, a great sermon clip as well. Everybody stand by. Let's bring into the conversation Dr. Gilda Carl. If you don't know Dr. Gilda Carl, I want you to, there's a website we'll tell you about here in just a minute. Let me pull up the right information on my screen here. I got the wrong info here. Yeah, why do I have my, I have wrong info. All right, here, let me just bring Dr. Gilda Carl, waiting patiently in the studio, into the program, and, the device not connected. They need to connect with their mic. Okay, so Dr. Gilda's not connected. So, all right, let me play this video now while we wait for Dr. Gilda to connect here. Dr. Gilda's supposed to be here at 8:30 this morning, and we're right on time, so let's do this. This is the... This is Dr. Greg Laurie, Pastor Greg Laurie out of one of the Calvary Chapels out in the California area. Great guy. I love hearing his sermons. If you don't follow him, it's worth following. But this is him reacting to the death of Charlie Kirk and tying it into the fact that this is not the time to be quiet. This is the time to stand up. Roll it.
I'm disappointed by some pastors who have said very little or nothing about this in their pulpits. I have to be honest with you. What troubled me in the aftermath of Charlie's horrible death is the way people react. Many are mourning, but then the predictable trolls are out there, some even celebrating it. It's unbelievable. You know, the Bible talks about those that call good bad and they call bad good. We have people actually saying this is a good thing and it's just a horrible thing. But for those of us that have hearts It hurts. It hurts even though you may have never met Charlie. It hurts because we're all part of the family, you see. He's the family of God. And he's the first person I know, a Christian leader, who has been assassinated. This is personal for us. And the Bible says when one member of the body of Christ suffers, we all suffer. So it's appropriate to mourn, is what I'm saying. Because the Bible says there's a time to laugh and there's a time to mourn. So we need to mourn. We need to mourn for his wife, Erica. They had their whole future before them and the two little children that will never really know their daddy. But then we must take action. I think this is a watershed moment. This could be a turning point for this younger generation. Young people, this could be your moment. This can rally the reluctant. It can also reveal the complacent. The faithful will rise and the lukewarm will fade. Here's what I would say to young people. Stop trying to fit in and be cool, and stand up and be courageous for Christ like Charlie Kirk was.
There you have it. That's Pastor Greg Laurie, and a great admonition. But if you do, and I think that's so true, if you do say, why do I grieve so much for this? Why was this so awful? It's because if you are a person in the the family of faith of Christianity, this was one of your brothers that was killed and executed. And as Greg Laurie said, he doesn't know anybody that's ever been executed or martyred for their faith in America. And this is a first. So there's a reason that you have those intense emotions that you're like, this is weird. Maybe you didn't even see the video and yet you feel grieving. A lot of that, again, is spiritual. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. The powers and principalities of the unseen realm of darkness. And there's an unseen realm of darkness. And all through biblical history, you find stories after story of demonic activity, or what we call fallen angels that have been on the planet. And, they used to roam rampantly around, and Jesus cast famously so many amount of one person, they were called Legion, they into pig. And you ever wonder where all that activity went, where they manifest? I really believe, and again, that in some way, those same evil spirits are involved in what we're watching now. So, Greg Laurie, great job, and I hope you enjoyed that. And I've got another powerful video I want to play. All right, I think Dr. Gilda has been able to reconnect. We went there earlier and said not connected, but the name was there. Device not connected. Dr. Gilda is having some technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. I see Dr. Gilda in the green room. Dr. Gilda has made it. Dr. Gilda, welcome in.
Hi. Good to see you this morning.
I'm sorry you had a little difficulty there. Glad we got it all worked out.
We got it.
Well, why don't you give all this setup? I just rushed you to the stage. I'll let you do the fine introduction of yourself, and we'll dive into some conversation.
Well, I am the spokesperson for the International Council for Men and Boys, number one. Number two is I just published this book, Real Men Don't Go Woke. It's flying off the shelves. I'm delighted to explain that to you later on. And we're talking about men and boys and the tendency to commit suicide, which is outrageous in numbers today. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And men don't have a place to go. Feminists are breathing down their throats, telling them they're less than, and some of them are believing this. Yeah. So one of the ways they have been in hiding, and this is very apropos of all the news right now about Charlie Kirk's assassin, is that they drop out of intimacy with women. How? Well, they become gay, or they become furries, or they become totally isolated, and it's causing tremendous problems for young men. If they're behind a computer screen and watching gaming all day long, then some of them are reacting to the Charlie Kirk assassination as though they're playing a game on a gaming console. And these people aren't real. Charlie Kirk wasn't real, and death is not real. And they're in la la land a lot of the times. And we have lost a large sector of our male youth. And we've got to reclaim this. We've got to get them back. And the answer, in part, is in women. understanding what men are going through and being much more understanding and compassionate in the way they speak to men.
Yeah.
And so that's my work. That's what I've been doing.
The voice, if you're listening later in the day to the podcast version of the show, where by the end of the day, watching and listening, thousands of earbuds, ear holes will hear this show, and that's Dr. Gilda Carl, spokesperson for the International Council of Men and Boys, and author of a new book called Real Men Don't Go Woke. Dr. Carl, Dr. Gilda, I have this question that it just baffles me, that the American left, who used to be the proponents for ERA and the Equal Rights Amendment and equality, now is the party that says, hey, equality means if a man was born with his twig and berries, he's biological man. He can claim to be a woman. It doesn't really matter. In other words, the left that used to be, quote, the champion of women is now warring on women and causing real biological women to suffer because they're putting men in boys' sports. It's really oppressive what they're doing, not accepting.
No, it makes no sense, and it is oppressive. And that's a part of this whole mix right now that we're trying to understand. We're trying to understand what causes somebody to just drop out of being what is considered masculine, and how to reclaim these lives before they are so disgusted that with everything, with interactions with women, with interactions with other men, that they just take their lives. There is a better way. And Charlie Kirk was out there giving them an opportunity to seek a better way, to talk, to communicate. Sun Tzu, who I quote amply in Real Men Don't Go Woke, talks about communication as opposed to combat. That's what we are after. Charlie Kirk allowed that to occur, where these kids had never had the opportunity to communicate and never had the opportunity to communicate well. And now he's been taken from us. But I do believe that it was a turning point in our country, because many, many chapters have come out of this that had not been in existence before. Turning point chapters I'm talking about at various universities. And people are starting to wake up. I hope, I pray.
I saw last night the number had gone literally to 54,000 requests of Turning Point chapters. Unbelievable. So that's I saw that posted last night, and I'm like, am I sleepy looking at this number wrong? I think I screenshot it. I should look, because I'm like, that's crazy. Talk about go ahead.
The last I heard, it was 32,000. So this is not unusual. I was at an event last night and I was talking 32,000. This is amazing. And then now I'm hearing 54. This is tremendous.
Yeah. And again, I want to corroborate those numbers, but you mentioned the 34. I saw that earlier yesterday, and the day before that, I saw 13,000. So it is growing. There's footage right now of a Turning Point USA booth at some university in which they were swamped and swarmed by thousands, not protesters, people going, sign us up, we're part of you now. So it's really unbelievable. We can talk more about that. But I think it's really important that, we get so indoctrinated by the media. United Nations put stuff out. There's a study out there that women are really persecuted, and we hear it, and no one gives the counterfactor, the counter information. What they're telling us is equality in this day and age is not equality. Dr. Gilda, what they're telling us is equality is really Marxism. I'll let you kind of explain that when you hear the modern, I guess, politicians and left use the word equality, really what they're not talking about what you and I think of for equality.
I don't know definitions of words. I came on listening to you define words that the kids are using that we don't understand anymore. But I don't understand the word equality when they are talking about this is how women are persecuted. And yet men have been shown, my organization did all this data, and men have been shown to be behind in 12 different areas of our lives, including education, including healthcare, including family rights when they are getting divorced and they're losing their kids. I mean, we can go on and on and on with all 12 of these, but there is no counter argument from these women. And that's unfair, and it's poor research. And anybody, I have a PhD, anybody who has any kind of education understands there's one point and there's another point to counter. And the only answer, as we know, as a civilized organization, is in communication, and to keep Charlie Kirk's name alive and his whole legacy is to understand that we must be communicating.
Yeah. The voice of Dr. Gilda Carl. She's written a book called Real Men Don't Go Walk. She's also a spokesperson for the International Council of Men and Boys. Dr. Clark, let me ask you this year. We saw that the true messages coming out, young people, college-age students, obviously a turning point, have really made a shift in the last election to more right-leaning views and less craziness. You've seen some of that in the minority communities as well. Are we going to see some trend? Because Donald Trump at the polls he did better with women, but not as good as he possibly could have. What do you have to do to, I guess, in a sense, deprogram people to let you know, because they've been taught that patriarchy is bad, down with the patriarchy, and they keep voting the same way. And then if they don't like it, they just say you're a sexist, and people believe that.
Better, you're toxic.
Yeah,
you're toxic. You're no good. And don't you think this is all filtering down to young boys? I did a book signing in Scottsdale, Arizona, for the audience for Real Men Don't Go Woke. And I was explaining about this rate of suicide that has gone up, up, up. And, I was looking at eyes that were almost unbelieving. And then we went home. My book sold out. Everybody was really excited to hear more and learn more. And then one of the attendees called me the next morning to tell me that her best friend's 13-year-old son had committed suicide while we were talking about this. So what I am saying is that this can hit any family. It's unbelievable. Boys have nowhere to go. Boys will not share. Men who are at least young men are finding that they open their mouth and they're cut off, they're castrated, they're canceled, and they don't want to have anything more to do with women. That's not an answer. The answer is for women to make it safer. But there are two kinds of women I have found in my research. There are the mean girls, and those are the women to whom you are referring. And there are the real women who love men, want to raise little men, care about what happens to men, and want to support them. Yeah. So we have two different kinds of women, and men have not been taught to differentiate between the two. And it's hurting them one after another. And then they are just dropping out and saying, that's it, I'm not going to be with women anymore. Well, that's not an answer. That's not a healing answer. So I have a lot of work to do.
Yes, you do. Talk real quick about the book, and it's a great concept, and we'll talk about the International Council of Men and Boys. But you're author of a book called Real Men Don't Go Woke. Unpack that and tie it all together.
Okay. Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. Men's testosterone levels are falling. The Y chromosome that determines the male sex is thinning out, and eventually there may be no men on this planet while they're worrying about climate change. There may be no men to be in this climate. We find that if there is workplace deaths, 90% are men. Men are more depressed. They're more lonely than ever before. And this is not only in the United States, this is throughout the world. And 2 countries that I know of, England and Japan, have ministers of loneliness set up. So this is a worldwide problem. And we have got to get a handle on this. And I have been the only one right now, and certainly I'm female, as you can tell, and I'm the only one who's standing up for our men. And I posted something on TikTok. See, I'm talking to the guys. A lot of the researchers are just like up here, and they're not talking to the people that this affects. And I posted something that showed that one woman on Instagram said, oh, male suicides. Another woman posted, not high enough. And 7,000 women liked that post. That
Wow.
is not high enough. These are not the real women. These are the other kind of women, the feminists, which I call the mean girls.
The Mean Girls. The name of the book, Real Men Don't Go Walk. If people want to buy a copy, we'll tell them how to do that. And also, if you want to learn more about the International Council of Men and Boys, here's the website. You go to the website menandboys.net. The International Council for Men and Boys, a non-government organization, we call it an NGO, that celebrates the contributions of men to society and end the 12 sex disparities that affect men that Dr. Gilda talked about. Again, menandboys.net, menandboys.net. Dr. Gilda, if folks want to follow you and or get a copy of your brand new book called Real Men Don't Go Woke, where do they go?
Amazon is easy. Go to my website, drgilda.com, drgilda.com, and see what the men are saying themselves. How one man read this book and he decided not to commit suicide. We have a crisis here. Please, everybody, let us solve this together.
drgilda.com, drgilda.com. Dr. Gilda, I appreciate it. Glad you worked out those technical difficulties. We got connected with you. drgilda.com. We'll have you back on here soon. Again, the name of her new book is called Real Men Don't Go Walk. And also, she's working as a spokesperson for the International Council of Men and Boys. And their website is menandboys.net. Menandboys.net. All right. Glad to have all of you here on the program. I want to bring in my next guest, waiting patiently, running about 5 minutes behind the schedule with some technical difficulties up front, but he's very patient. It's Donald Wilkie. He's written a great book that you want to get a copy of, and it's about freedom. And we like to talk about freedom on this program. I think it's very, very important that we talk about freedom in the country that we have, and we got to keep it. And it's a system that we have to protect, and that's the name of his book, Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System. It's Donald Wilkie in the studio, and do we bring him up onto the stage? Good morning, Don. How are you?
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. I want to dive into this freedom of the system of freedom we have, and I'm going to tie it in this way. We had the assassination, tragically, of Charlie Kirk last week, and now we're hearing over and over again, every night, if you look around, there's somebody being fired, whether it's a student being expelled from Texas Tech University, Texas State University. Students are getting expelled for things that they said to, I guess, cooperate and agree with the assassination of Kirk. You have teachers, administrators, spokespeople, press people from the NFL, lawyers, attorneys. People are finding that they have freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequences. And yet, when they're getting fired, Donald, they're saying, "I have freedom of speech. I have the right to say this." Is that is that what the system intended? That you have this freedom to say anything you want with no consequence?
Well, the no consequences part is what always gets you, right?
Yeah.
No, you can't say anything you want without consequences. I mean, you can't say things to your wife without consequences. I mean, it just goes, that's so simple. I see what is happening is most of the young people, or a very large percentage of the young people, think the world owes them a living. So they want the big job and they don't want the responsibility. They don't want to have to do what the company wants them to do. They want the company to do what they want to do. I think DEI is a perfect example. You hire someone, put them in charge of a big department in your corporation, no qualifications, nothing to say you know what you're doing, and it's just a make-believe job, a make-up job, and this is the kind of work that these people seem to gravitate to. Now, the way the marketplace works, it's worked this way for 10,000 years, is the company hires you, and if the company doesn't want you, they get rid of you. That's called the free marketplace. And these people are basically saying, you hire me regardless of whether you want me or not, because I'm somebody and you need to hire me. And there's an inversion. And I think this is a rude awakening that's coming up to a lot of people on the left.
I want to talk to you, bring the history perspective into it. And our forefathers, you highlighted mainly Benjamin Franklin, not necessarily surprised by that. In the back of Ben Franklin's mind, I'm sure he didn't see us all walking around with our cell phones and our heads down. I'm sure he didn't envision that, but he knew that human nature was to at times be lazy and expect something for nothing and expect to just be lazy and not have the consequence of being lazy. That sets up the question, did our forefathers, did Benjamin Franklin know that we would get to this place to where people would say that they could do anything they want and not have the consequence of that action?
I don't know if they knew we would get to where we have gotten so far today, but it is interesting to note that Franklin used to talk about Saint Monday. And what he meant by Saint Monday was the colonists were religious people, and Sunday was the day of rest. But Franklin used to make notes of how many people wouldn't show up for work on Saint Monday. And being a businessman, being an owner, I can tell you Saint Monday is true. You go to the weekend and you come back Monday and 5, 6, 7, 8 people won't show up. And, it's a big problem. To operate in the marketplace, you follow what the owner of the business wants. And if you don't want to be in that business, you leave. But if you do want to be in that business, then you do what the owner wants. It's just that simple. But this is an age-old problem. Saint Monday always rang a bell with me.
We have, the old physics law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. We didn't, these people are actually shocked that they are getting arrested for disrupting rallies, destroying memorials. And you see some of their mugshots or read some of the stories. I think they were actually shocked that there's consequences for their action. Like they didn't expect they were actually going to get sent home to mama and get suspended from school because they were receiving a state-funded scholarship. And the state of Texas says, we're not giving that anymore. Get the heck out of here. You can see and hear that some of them are actually shocked. We didn't just get here overnight. When did all this, start? Was it the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, that I'm going to get where I get just because I'm diverse and equal and they're going to include me no matter what? Was that the vessel that led us to this slippery slope to where we're at now?
Well, I think it's been going on for at least since the late 60s. But, the late 60s was what I call an inversion. And in the late 60s, you had the anti-war movement, you had the free sex movement, you had the civil rights movement, you had the drug movement, you had free speech, you had long hair, you had rock and roll. It was quite a time. And I think people are trying to regenerate that. And they're failing. They're doing what looks like the 60s, but it doesn't have the meaning of the 60s. So the stranger you can make yourself look, the more metal you can stick in your head and the more tattoos you have, you have a right to do that. You have a right to look the way you want to look. But if an employer doesn't want to hire you, I'm sorry. I remember going to work for a blue collar job. Looking for work for a blue collar job, wearing a suit coat. I wanted to present myself well to the employer so I would get hired. I don't think these people have that idea. I think they think the world owes them a living. And this is the rude awakening we're coming to now.
I see a quote, I think it's in your book. It's Ben Franklin wrote in 1782, a big quote, and I won't do the whole thing, but it was basically European aristocrats were coming to America thinking, I'm so good, I'm so fancy, they're going to give me a great job and I won't have to work hard for it. And Benjamin Franklin excoriated that line of thought thinking, and he made fun of these European aristocrats America was being based on meritocracy, not aristocracy, and he made fun of them.
Yeah, in Europe, with the aristocracy, they were the people who made all the rules. They were a small section of society. The peasants were the big section. But the aristocrats all thought, because of their royal birth, they were worth something. In other words, their birth made them worth something. And Franklin reminded them that America was the worst place you could come to. It's a place where people don't ask of you who you are. I'm sorry, not who you are, but what you can do. And that is the root of America. What can you do? And the aristocrats just couldn't fathom that. It was a different kind of mentality that they had in France and England.
I saw a little meme of an interaction with Charlie Kirk, and they asked him where we got kind of the similar question: how do we get to where we're at now? And he brought up an interesting point that back in the '60s, maybe before, right around that time, the self-esteem movement came into work, and he says that was a problem. Kids were told from a very young age, "You're good enough just the way you are." In other words, you don't have to be in a pursuit of growth, and you're good enough, you're smart enough, and it's going to be okay. As opposed to us instilling into these kids, you can be better. You're a great kid, but let's get to your goals. You have greatness inside of you. Let's untap it. The self-esteem movement seemed kind of innocuous at the time, didn't it? And maybe that's kind of led us here.
I think that's a very good point. That is right spot on as far as I'm concerned. The whole purpose of education is to make the transition from being a dependent to independent, from being a child to an adult. And the marketplace is a competitive system. And when you go into the marketplace, Jimmy, I don't know if you've ever had to compete in the marketplace.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
Everyone who's been in the marketplace has to compete. So why would we teach our kids to not learn how to compete, to not learn that they're going to have to compete, to focus on what they're good at? So when they do get to the marketplace, they can find areas that they can excel in. That's the whole point of education. Not to just say, hey, I'm perfect just the way I am. No, education is to learn.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Franklin. Here's a guy who lived to 84. I don't think even the day before he died, he had stopped learning. He learned every day of his life. It's what we all should instill in our kids.
Yeah. It's fascinating to watch, even a conversation about our founding fathers and our founding documents can tie, and we can learn what we need to learn about the place in history and time we're at. Obviously, Donald Wilkie, my guest, by the way, the name of his book is Freedom Revealed, a Simple, Elegant System. We'll tell you how to get that and follow along with him in just a minute. But Don, as you've studied and you've looked at this freedom, this system of freedom that we have and how elegant it is, and yet we've got to preserve the darn thing. We live in a very divided time. Some people come together after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump and say, okay, we're one country, different. But some people still won't come together and defend the unity necessary. What do you think that Ben Franklin would say in our culture today? You've studied him. You know his quotes. You know his mindset. If he were to observe where we're at today with people actually celebrating the death of a political and even a religious leader in our country, what do you think Ben Franklin would say, and what advice should we give our nation?
Well, Franklin was a realist first and foremost. He liked to understand things the way they were. And his whole life, he studied the way how they were and how they worked. He was a realist. The marketplace is going to work the way it's going to work. You cannot change that. And the interesting thing with the marketplace, if it is allowed to work the way it should, you get prosperity. If the marketplace is distorted by either too much government or too little government, and for example, our cities of Memphis and Washington, D.C. and Flint, they don't have government. We have anarchy. So if you have too much government or too little government, the marketplace is distorted. You have to have that place that's just right, where government works for the people and the way it should work. Got a phone call here. Sorry about that.
You're very popular. That's fine. Again, the voice of Donald Wilkie. His book is called Freedom Revealed, a Simple, Elegant System. Donald, if folks want to get a copy of the book and or follow your work online, where do they go?
Well, the easiest place is Amazon. You can also go to my website. It's freedomrevealed.net. And if you'd like to send me a line, dwilkie, DWILKIE at freedomrevealed.net. Check out YouTube and take a look at Substack as well. I have some videos there I think you'll find interesting.
freedomrevealed.net, freedomrevealed.net. For the person who maybe is watching and says, well, I know the Constitution, it's Constitution Month, I know all this, Donald. Is there something I need to be learned or refreshed? What is what's the hook here for those people that are know-it-alls in the talk show world say, I already know freedom, it's already revealed to me, I don't need to read this?
Well, it is a system and it works together. And if you don't have all the parts, it isn't going to work. And it's like a car. If you have the engine and you have the seats and you have the body and you don't have the tires, it ain't going to work. So that's the thing that I discovered about freedom. You got to have all the parts in order for the system to work.
Donald Wilkie, it's a pleasure. I know you hopped on here last minute for us. We appreciate you, Don Wilkie, freedomrevealed.net. And again, the name of the book is called Freedom Revealed, and I'd encourage you to get it. It's a great refresher because he's correct. I've got the book, and he's absolutely correct. We think of, just because we have a founding document, you have to have a system that comes in around that. And it's not just that people don't value the Constitution, it's the whole system. It's a package. And he explains it much more eloquently than I ever could. But it is a refresher course for everybody. So everybody in these troubled times, as Winston Churchill would say, that says, man, we need help in this country. One thing we need is a rebirth of education, and that's not your kids going to a history class at university that's not biased, but all of us could renew ourselves and stew again, not just in our founding documents, but the entire system that our forefathers put together and they envisioned. And he does a great work in unpacking the life of Benjamin Franklin. A lot of Benjamin Franklin research there, and I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you're a student of history, because it may open up those blinders. You learned history like this, and you go, oh, they were seeing more than what I was seeing or what I thought I knew. And it's always great. It's a great learning experiment. We all have to keep on learning. And that's what he said. Benjamin Franklin, probably till the day he died the night before, was still learning and trying to grow. And I think we all have to, in these times that we live in, when our freedoms are under attack, we have to continue to reconstitute ourselves in the knowledge and understanding of where our freedoms come from. And remember, our freedoms don't come from man. Our freedoms come from God. That's what our founders said. And this book talks about the freedoms that we have and the system that makes them grow and flourish, and what part of that system may be broken in America, and our freedoms start to shrivel up a little bit. So Freedom Revealed, pick up a copy of the book. Donald Wilkie at freedomrevealed.net is his website. I recommend especially this book, freedomrevealed.net, freedomrevealed.net. All right. I meant to play this earlier and I didn't get to it, but I want to play this video. And I think it may be one of the most explanatory videos that I've explained as to what's happened in our culture. This is a cultural story. And I said this after the Columbine High School shooting. Many of you know the Columbine High School shooting, almost 20 years? A long time. It was a long time ago. I think almost 25 years ago, 1999. I lived just down the street from Columbine High School. At the time, I was working as I was doing talk radio, but I was also as a volunteer working as a youth leader at a local church that was just 3 blocks down the street. And I was just a volunteer working as a youth worker at the church, helping out with their youth services and things like that. So I was in that community when Columbine happened. And I was very touched by it. I was bothered by it. Obviously, I knew kids that were trapped in Columbine, became good friends with some Columbine survivors. Evan Todd, who's been on my podcast, for Critical Mission. All of you should go look that interview up. It really impacted that part of my life for a period of time. I was on doing news hits all across America. I was traveling and speaking based on just the passion and the tragedy of what happened at Columbine, and trying to make a difference in the world. So I was young. I was 25 years ago. I was a much younger guy, but it was a very impactful time. And I remember saying at the time, and I probably steered on emotion and probably wasn't very unifying, but I meant this from the bottom of my heart. I got tired of all these politicians coming to town and pretending that they all cared about all these kids. And one day just probably hit me, probably a point of anger or whatever. You got 14, 15, 16-year-olds dying, and they're saying what a tragedy it is. And it was a horrible tragedy. And I caused some controversy, and I got some kickback on it, but I've used it before, and I put it in parameters. If any of all these politicians, Bill Clinton came to town, spoke at the memorial. I mean, I remember the whole thing. I was there. I was around it. I literally lived down the street, a mile or so from Columbine, so I knew the area. And I said this. It's amazing these politicians come out here and pontificate and act like they care. But does anybody see and this is the question I asked, does anybody see the problem that if any of these kids would have not been alive if any of these kids would have not been alive to be at Columbine, in other words, if any of these kids would have died in their mother's womb, it would have been celebrated as a choice, but they died 15 years later. It's called a tragedy. I don't understand why it gives. We have a cultural problem. And I said that almost 25 years ago. And some people did not like that I said that, but I really didn't necessarily care. But I said that. This is a video by a guy his name is Mr. Catholic. And I think in this day we have to recognize, and I think we all know that we can maybe appreciate, what we're fighting here, people celebrating the death of somebody they disagree with politically. Anytime you celebrate the death of someone like that, they're God's children. All of us are made in the image of God. And if you're celebrating someone's death, whether they're Republican or Democrat, your political foe or political friend, if you're celebrating someone's death, you have a problem that I think is deeper than just a bad manners. You have a spiritual problem. I believe that there's a book that I'm starting to dive into. Our pastor recommended called The Unseen Realm. If you pick up a copy of it, I think I can recommend it so far. But we have a problem. And I've oftentimes, even back in the days of Columbine, knowing the evil, it wasn't just the evil of the shooter, but it was an hypocrisy of the politicians grandstanding about the tragedy of their loss. And yet millions of people die every year in the walls of a place called Planned Parenthood. All right. So I was baffled by that. It's just kind of this fight inside of me that I'm glad these politicians are here mourning, but I'm also sickened that they're here grandstanding, because they have communicated that baby 15 years ago would have been a choice to exterminate it, but 15 years later, the baby's gone. It still results in the same results, and they should. There was a tension that I couldn't reconcile, and I've been unable to reconcile for 25 years since the Columbine High School shooting. And I saw this video, and I went, "Oh, well, that tension was not necessarily about." The tension I was having wasn't about what I saw physically, but there's an unseen realm that's out there. I want to play this video. This is a guy that, and Charlie Kirk had addressed this. They asked him, Charlie, young men are going back to the church, but they're going back to the Catholic Church. You're an evangelical. What do you say about that? And Charlie said, that's very simple. He goes, I'm glad they're going back somewhere. He says, because the Catholic Church up and down has survived, has been consistent, and they tired of whims and things change. They want the consistency, and that's why Charlie Kirk thought that so many were heading to the Catholic Church. So I want to play this video, and I want you to just hear what he says of the mindset of the American left. Has said, my body, my choice. This is my body. And he'll put it in perspective of what Jesus said about his body, and I think you will see a stark difference and recognize that there's something more going on than just there's mockery going on, and we have to recognize the battle we have is spiritual. Make sense? Watch this. I think it'll make more sense. Let's do that. Roll the tape.
Satan would kill God if he could, but he can't. So he kills babies because he knows it wounds the heart of the Father. Absolutely. And causes chaos on the earth. You see, abortion is actually the sacrament of Satan. Because abortion says you must die so I can live. But Christ says, no, I must die so you can live. And chooses to enter human history in a uterus of all locations to redeem mankind from their sins. This is why Peter Kraft, the Catholic philosopher who's still alive today, spoke more prophetically on the issue of abortion than any Protestant I've ever heard. And he said, don't you know, church, abortion is the demonic parody of the Eucharist. That's why it uses the same holy words. This is my body, but with the opposite blasphemous meaning. Yeah. Do you think it's a coincidence that the central phrase of the entire abortion industrial complex and the culture of death today are the same words of our Savior at the First Communion, this is my body? And because Planned Parenthood is not only the largest abortion provider in the world, they're the largest provider of transgender drugs. They call both of those mutilations health care. Did you know this? What do they call transgender surgeries? Gender affirming. What do they call abortion? Reproductive. Right. They call them both health care. And so if they can't get the babies in the womb, they'll get them outside the womb. They defend both practices using bodily autonomy arguments. This is my body. Yep. And if I want to kill what's inside of my body, then who cares? Because the serpent told me in Genesis 3, ye shall be as gods. Abortion is the sacrament of the religion of secular progressivism. So when Christ says, this is my body, I go break it for you now. Take and eat in remembrance of me. Guys, all human conflict is ultimately theological. It is not a coincidence that the argument for abortion is quoting the words of our Savior.
I told you. I don't know who the guy is. I saw that a couple of months ago, but it becomes apropos today that the base of Christianity was Jesus saying at that first communion, "This is my body." And yet all the movements that have radicalized and done damage in America, they use the same mockery. They say, "This is my body, and I'll do with it what I want." And yet as Christians, we're called to lay down our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God. So anyway, I thought the paradox and the paradigm and the contrast there was well stated, because I've had that conflict in my heart going, man, these people are bringing mockery, pretending to care about life, and yet the whole time they're screaming, "This is my body." And it just all ties together that these battles are spiritual, and we have to recognize them as spiritual battles. And if we don't, then it's to our own peril if we don't. Anyway, I just found that interesting. I hope you understand where I'm coming from on that. It's just, I saw that as one of those powerful explanations of the modern world we live, that if you go back in Christianity, that the very final act where Jesus was trying to explain what was about to be his death, his crucifixion, on that final night, he took bread, he broke it, he said, "This is my body," and then he said, "This is my blood," but this is my body. Such a powerful phrase. And ever since then, in modern day, we have people that scream, "This is my body." And that's not the phrase and the context and how Jesus used "this is my body." So let's learn from Jesus about what that means. This is my body. And he says we should present our bodies living as sacrifices, holy, acceptable to God. And so there's a different use of "this is my body" than the American left has taken on as their platform and a plank in their platform. Make sense? All right, let's wrap this thing up now that we've gone deep in there. HomesWithSherry.com pops on your screen, and I want to remind you that Sherry Cree is a fantastic sponsor of this program. And, I was thinking, I'm in Colorado right now, and I don't know if I'll be in Colorado forever. I'm here, at least my son's through college. I don't know. Maybe I'll move somewhere on the beach. Maybe I'll move to the desert. I don't know. I like Vegas. I like Phoenix. I've been seeing some of the shots of where Charlie's from, and I'm like, I could live there in the winter and be in Africa in the summer. I mean, I could do all this thing. So I'm kind of always thinking about what's going to happen next in my life. Maybe you're thinking the same way. I've got a few years out probably before I have to make or want to make any moves. Maybe. I don't know. I could just change my mind tomorrow. But listen, you need to have strategy. The bottom line is you need a strategy. Whether you're moving in the state, out of the state, whether you're buying or selling, you got to have a strategy. And that strategy better not come, "Hey, can we get my house listed next month?" That's maybe not the best strategy. It could be, but maybe you want to start planning ahead. Give some thought, some conversation, some consideration. And then you get Sherry Cree, HomesWithSherry.com, get her involved in that planning and consideration. We're mid-September right now. A lot of folks don't want to be having a house on the market by November, December, because you end up conflicting the holidays. That's understandable. I mean, there's still homes available. You can still sell your home. Just drop the globe. You can still sell your home during those times, but you want to make sure you know the strategy to get it done and get it done right. And I think that's the key. A lot of folks just put signs in yards. Sherry wants to come with a strategy. She comes with a strategy that she wants to know that if you make the right move, that your real estate can create generational wealth for your family. In other words, future generations can benefit from the decision you make when you buy or sell a home. Why don't you reach out to Sherry, HomesWithSherry.com. You say, "Jimmy, I don't want people in my home in November, December." Well, maybe talk about the window of opportunity that we have right now. Is it ready to go on the market? Your home may not even be ready to go on the market, but maybe you could shoot, let's say, February to get that thing going. She can tell you all the strategies and all the places. And also, there is a window here that's about to open with the interest rates announcements that happen. So you got to be cognizant of the whole picture. Sherry wants to present that to you and be a partner with you in preparing for all these things. HomesWithSherry.com. If you're on that I-25 corridor, the Denver Metro, the Fort Collins Metro, Broomfield, Boulder, out to Fort Lupton, up to Fort Collins. You've got what do they call it? The Carbon Valley area, I think it's called. That's the Dacono, Firestone, Frederick exit off the I-25. Longmont. Hello, Longmont. How you doing? Sherry can help you there. Lafayette, Louisville. If you're down in Aurora, you're in Parker, the Highlands Ranch area, Littleton, Lakewood, wherever it's at, talk to Sherry. And by the way, if she thinks she's got a colleague that could help you better in those areas, she'll give you a referral. Maybe you're in an area that's even outside of this area. She can help you find the referral. She has a free referral service. HomesWithSherry.com, HomesWithSherry.com, and she's going to help you make the right move, whether you're buying or selling. Top dollar, all that stuff. She wants to do it. HomesWithSherry.com, HomesWithSherry.com. All right, here we go. I got to do this. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Speaking of, we have a problem. There you go. The transgender, him, her, unstable, the pronouns. Political cartoonist says, yeah, I don't think it's the guns. They spent years blaming it on the guns, right? And they're trying to blame it on the Trump people, and now they're realizing it's a lot of problems. That speaks for itself. By the way, I don't hate pumpkin spice. I just noticed it. Producer Chad asked me, do you like pumpkin spice? I said, I don't really have lattes. That's all I said. And producer Chad did what so many people, he turned that into a hateful message. Did I say I hate lattes or hate pumpkin spice? No, I don't hate it. I don't freak out about it. I don't know. He turned that, he asked me, do you like pumpkin spice? I said, I don't have lattes at all, but I know everything's in pumpkin spice flavor now. I don't hate pumpkin spice. Well, I don't think I've ever had a pumpkin spice latte. I don't think I've ever had much pumpkin spice. It doesn't sound good, but I don't hate it. Don't hate it at all. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one. Oh, here we go. It's a theme, producer Chad have. When most people think of fall, they think pumpkin spice. Those of us in Colorado understand. We think Pueblo green chili. New Mexico, you have Hatch green chili as well, right? Folks in Texas, you're like, what's a green chili? Yeah, that's different than the verde sauce. It's different. Pueblo green chili. Yeah, it's hard to remember that green chili is not necessarily a national phenomenon, but for producer Chad and I, it is. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. By the way, producer Chad's wife makes a mean green chili and a mean salsa. I ate some of that yesterday. Vegans combining 5+ carcinogens and 10+ industrial chemicals to make food instead of just eating an egg. You ever anybody ever the Impossible meat? We're taking all this chemical and all this chemical so that you don't eat the meat of a cow. Yep, I'm thinking make America beef eaters again would be good. Make America healthy again. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Truth is like a dog whistle. Only certain people can hear it. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that don't want to hear truth, but there is truth out there. And sometimes it's not your, by the way, there's no such thing as your truth or your experience, but not your truth. Truth is truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. There's truth. One. Uno. Stacy says the titles under my name crack me up. I'm glad they do. I never see them until I blow my screen up on full monitor because I have little window problems. Don't even go there, Delilah. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. At a Walmart self-checkout, his hair rings up a spark plug for a 2001 Pontiac Grand Am. I see it. His bangs there. They call those bangs. We saw bangs. His bangs are a barcode. Is that a mugshot? Is that Trump voter? I don't know. Round and around the globe we go, where we... It's a barcode. Let me scan your head, sir. The True Value Hardware Store, lumber. Men choosing paint must have a note from wife. That's probably accurate right there. Men choosing paint should have a note from their wife. Yeah, I don't have a note or a wife, so I guess I'm all right. Round and around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Can I buy paint? I don't know if I'm allowed to now. Here's a truth perspective. So that's bigoted. No, it's true. Tell me I'm wrong. Convicted felon drug addict. Media treats him as a saint. Talks to college kids. Interacts ideas. His death is mocked by media outlets. ABC, NBC, CBS. Listen, my friends, if the things that you're seeing this week in the death coverage of Charlie Kirk don't awaken you to a greater problem of spirituality, spiritual war, and just also Trump derangement syndrome. And it's not just Trump, but it's derangement syndrome out there about you and I. If this doesn't awaken you to it, I don't know what will. And I don't hate pumpkin spice. I've never had a pumpkin spice latte. Green chili latte. Now you're getting gross, Jeff. That doesn't sound right. Producer Chad, he can probably figure it out. Ray says, looked like he drew his hair on with a Sharpie. Sharpie barcode. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have milked the meme machine dry. And appreciate you listening to the program today. It's kind of been all over the map. Can I give you behind the scenes? Here's how what a trained professional. Donald Wilkie was supposed to be with us at 8:15. So I'm vamping at 8:15 going, is Wilkie here? Is Wilkie here? And then randomly, unannounced, he had his time mixed up. I did not know he was showing up at 8:45. So the whole show's been a little bit off our balance if it disconnected, because I was expecting to connect everything differently, 15, 30, and then the final part would be the ramblings by Jimmy. So anyway, you didn't notice it, did you? Because we are trained professionals. Producer Chad and I never panicked. He just said, talk, Lakey, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. All right, I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that video by a guy named Mr. Catholic again tomorrow, because I think it puts a lot in perspective. Is the mockery that's happening. We live in a world that is mocking where we're at, and this is why it is a spiritual battle. I think this is what the sensation that a lot of people have. A lot of folks just headed back to church. I'm reading more and more yesterday of how many people said, I've been to church in years, but I'm going back to church. And what they were feeling drawing them, I believe it was a yearning, and I believe the spiritual hunger begins to develop, and that's what has been happening on the university campuses. Anybody been following like Ohio State football? A lot of these college football programs, my son is in one of them. A lot of them have become spiritual leaders on campuses. I know Ohio State, last year, they were holding campus-wide worship nights. Some of the schools, if you follow online, if you follow the right facts, the last couple of years, football teams and college kids have been baptizing each other in water fountains on college campuses. You didn't know this because they don't cover that. They cover the college kids that are purple-haired celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. But there is a spiritual revival, you could say, that has been working on college campuses for a long time. And I think when you start to recognize with this Charlie Kirk assassination, and even putting the perspective of that Mr. Catholic there about the abortion topic, even putting that up there, is how everything's meant to be a mockery of the Eucharist. Everything's meant to be a mockery of Jesus, and that's it. The enemy came to steal, kill, and destroy, and it's a spiritual battle. We leave it at that. All right. We've been all over the map on the show because I'm like, that was supposed to go here, but he shows up here. It's okay. We figured it out. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta go. If you'd like to email me, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. That's the email. We'd love to hear from you there. Indeed, we shall. And also, if you'd like to donate to our charity work, I haven't talked much about it. More of that coming. riverspromise.org if you want to know what has me all passionate, why I talk about Africa so much. Go to riverspromise.org. By the way, there's a documentary on there I believe you can see from producer Chad talking about my son's first time back after he turned 18. That's on the website. Go check it out. Producer Chad's documentary called River Returns. It's a short one, a mini documentary, but I think you'll enjoy it. Riverspromise.org. Riverspromise.org. Until we meet again tomorrow, may God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey, and I don't hate pumpkin spice, but I'm out of here.